Hello everyone and good afternoon and welcome all to this webcast. My name is Chris Beugelees. I'll be your host for today. Today's webcast will be around Oracle Ravello. Now to start this webcast I would like to welcome Richard Gasthagen, our Director of Cloud Business Development for EMEA. Richard literally grew up with the client virtual desktop concept from its inception. His main background is from virtualization solutions and cloud computing. He worked at Citrix for 4 years and made a switch to VMware, where he was employed during 9 years. With all his knowledge regarding this matter, he then made the step to Oracle, where he became the Director for Cloud Business Development. Today, he still has a very strong focus on our Oracle Ravello solution and, more broadly, our IaaS solutions, making him one of the top experts in this matter, of course. Richard?
Thank you very much, Christian, and welcome everyone. Thank you for dialing into this WebEx call. Of course, we're going to talk about the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, a fairly new service within the Oracle portfolio. But before I want to dive in to that, it is important that you understand that, of course, this is one of many cloud services that we have. So the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service is part of our infrastructure as a service portfolio. And we actually have many services in this portfolio where we, of course, have a generic compute cloud service where you can just get virtual machine from us out of our cloud. We have a dedicated compute cloud service where you can get reserved hardware, including its storage and networking capabilities as a service from our infrastructure cloud service. And we also recently introduced our bare metal cloud service where you can get physical servers from our cloud as a service. But the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service focuses on something very specific, and it focuses on existing virtualized workloads, and not just existing virtualized workloads, but mainly disposable workloads, and I'll come back to that, what I actually will mean with that. So what is this Oracle Ravello Cloud Service all about? The Oracle Ravello Cloud Service is mainly a extra virtualization stack that we can run on top of our public cloud offering. And what is nice about this virtualization stack is that it is 100% compatible with other virtualization software capabilities that are out there, for instance, like VMware and also KVM. What that means is that with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, you can take an on-premise, virtualized maybe VMware workload or a KVM workload, and you can move that into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service without any form of change. There's no conversion going on, no migration, there's no hardware change. All of the same components that were there on-premise in the VMware environment will be available inside the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So you really can take that virtual machine that you have and very easily move it over. Now, if you compare that to other public cloud services, of course, this can sometimes be much more harder. If you take your existing VMware environment and you would like to move those virtual machines over to like an Amazon or an Azure, it's like moving from your iPhone to an Android phone. It will be a different platform. So even though it is both virtualized, the virtual machine hardware will be different in both cases. And in most public cloud vendors also, you get a different networking architecture underneath it. So you have to start changing your IP addresses. And because you're all making all these changes, this is really not just moving your virtual machines. It really is a migration, and that requires skills and a lot of time. And when you start talking about wanting to do this for multiple virtual machines, it could actually take months to do for people. So that's actually a very complex process to take your on-premise workloads and move that just into the public cloud in such a way. So this is really one of the things that we're trying to solve with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. As the Ravello Cloud Service is offering identical virtual machine hardware, so the same like VMXNet3 drivers, the same SCSI controllers, all of that, but it's also offering up the underlying network topology that can make sure it can stay the same. So the IP address of the virtual machine, the MAC address of the virtual machine, all of that does not have to be changed, and therefore taking that on-premise VMware or KVM environment, it can literally be just moved and copied into the Oracle Ravello environment, and it just runs as is. It just has to copy over the virtual disk. We'll read out the information from the configuration files, from the VMX files. We query the VMware API to get other additional information like IP addresses, and therefore we have all that information that we need to know about that virtual machine, and we can just literally just run it as is. Now, the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service is not just about taking a single virtual machine and migrating that to the public cloud, but actually it is much more focused on looking at an entire application solution set. So what I mean with that, of course, is that most applications don't consist of just a single virtual machine. You might have some virtual machines that run your databases. You might have some virtual machines that run your middleware stack. And this could be any kind of workloads. This doesn't have to be native Oracle workloads. This could be .NET, Windows, or whatever kind of applications that you would like to run. And maybe on top of that, in front of that, you have some firewalls or load balancers and those kinds of things. And ideally what you would like to do is take that entire estate and move that into the public cloud as is, without any form of change. And that is something that we can do with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, as it does not just focus on a single virtual machine. What it actually can do is it can encapsulate the entire estate, including its networking topology, the different subnets and those kinds of things. And all of that can be encapsulated and be moved to the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service and run as is. And it cannot just do this once, but if you want to take this environment and you want to maybe run this like a few times, you can actually do this over and over again and maybe have 5 times this same identical environment running in the public cloud. No changes to IP numbers and all those kinds of things, but you'll still be able to run these environments in parallel next to each other. And outside of this, we just create a net firewall service so that you can still have public IP addresses be redirected inside this environment. So even though this runs in its encapsulated environment, fully isolated, you of course still can control for each individual virtual machine if it has also a parallel a public IP address that you can actually route traffic back inside this environment. Now, besides Oracle Ravello allowing you to very easily pick up your virtual machines that you have on-premise and move them into the public cloud, it also focuses really on adding functionality by moving it into the public cloud. And it does that by adding a lot of powerful orchestration tools about managing that particular workload. And this is, as I said in the beginning, where it comes back to what Oracle Ravello really focuses on. The Oracle Ravello Cloud Service really focuses on what we call something called disposable workloads. Workloads that come and go, where you continuously need copies of a particular environment, and that you can actually just run that over and over for dev test purposes or security purposes out of a public cloud. So what we actually have done with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service is add a lot of smart orchestration, not just to look at a single virtual machine, but look at that solution perspective from being a multi-virtual machine architecture with complex underlying networking, and all of that can be treated as a single blueprint, as a single application. So if you want to deploy that with a single click, I can deploy a 100+ virtual machine environment with complex networking very simply. Same thing from when I want to snapshot an environment. I can snapshot the entire multi-virtual machine environment in current state or in shutdown state and all those kinds of things. So it can really treat that entire environment as just a single entity. Now also it allows you to very easily share that environment with other users. If you want to share that environment back to a development person or to a QA or to a security person if there are any issues with it and those kinds of things, it has a lot of capabilities in there as well. And I'll be actually showing you some of those capabilities during the live demonstration. So you might be wondering then, so where can I really use this Oracle Ravello Cloud Service? What is it really is designed for, and when do I come across these kind of disposable workloads? Well, there are different types of use cases for this, but of course within the enterprise, of course, we see a lot of people having development and test purposes going on, and for every single production environment that many organizations have, they have multiple copies of those environments from a staging perspective for development and testing, for security testing, and those kinds of things. So you will find that within organizations, there is quite a lot of use cases where people would like to have just these disposable workloads. And the best way how you can actually look at this is if you look at an existing normal on-premise virtualized environment. You normally actually are only running a certain amount of production virtual machines. So for instance, if you have like 10 physical servers running a virtualization stack like VMware, and you might be running 100 virtual machines on top of that environment. Now typically what we see with most customers, of course this can fluctuate a little bit, is that about half of those virtual machines are their actual core production virtual machines. And that's really where people have spent a lot of money on from a VMware licensing perspective to make sure that those virtual machines are protected, that if a physical server fails, the virtual machine falls over somewhere else, and those kinds of things. But besides that production workload, people also, of course, run on top of this their development and test workloads and their staging workloads, and to do security testing and maybe some training and those kinds of things. And the challenge with those kinds of workloads, this great kind of workload that you see here on the chart, is that it is significantly more fluctuating. It is not like the production workload, which is typically much more predictable, very statical kind of behavior. These kinds of workloads, they come and go, and sometimes they can come in a much higher frequency than in other situations. And this is typically where we see that a lot of customers struggle with. So even though they have implemented virtualization, it doesn't mean that everyone within their organization can just instantly get a virtual machine, because they still have to validate. Can I allow this virtual machine on top of this environment, because I'm also running my production virtual machines on there and those kinds of things. And the users that want to have these kind of disposable workloads are therefore still often being declined service. They still have to wait a long period before they get their virtual machines, and often they don't even want to wait. They'll still go to a public cloud, and they'll go still to an Amazon to get their temporary workloads. But then the downside, of course, is that they'll actually be running their workloads on a non-compatible platform compared to their on-premise platform. So this is really something that we want to solve with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. What we can really say is, hey, yes, you can keep running your production virtual machines on-premise unchanged, but let us move those disposable workloads, those fluctuating workloads, off from your production platform, and let's put them into a public cloud that has unlimited scale. You can get whatever you want on demand, and critical is you only pay for when you are actually running those workloads. So when you have your peaks and downs, you will only be paying for when you're really running it, and not just for this static underlying hardware and that kind of stuff. So it makes it much more flexible. It allows VMware administrators to really focus on their on-premise production workloads and not have to worry about all these additional workloads that can in theory impact the production workloads. And it also gives the users that need these disposable workloads a platform where they can get instant access to their virtual machines on a very cost-efficient basis, super fast, and they also then can get the benefit of some of these additional orchestration tools that the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service can offer. So let me give you some examples of where people are using these kind of disposable workloads. Now, one of the examples, of course, is from a development perspective. If within your own organization you have developers, and of course developers, they are very demanding from an IT perspective. They need a lot of typically sandbox kind of environments. They want to have copies of their environments. And typically developers really don't like to share. Right? In the old days, developers actually had physical servers underneath their desk. And by the time they finally got a server, they never want to give that back again, because then it would take them a long time to get a new server again. So developers are not very used to sharing those kinds of things. And this is even what we see when developers use the public cloud. And when they actually go to like companies like an Amazon, and they very easily with their credit card create instances and that kind of stuff, at some point when they're done with those instances, what we actually have seen at customers is very often those instances just keep on running. they're not used to cleaning up after themselves from a virtual machine perspective, and of course then you keep on paying for that. And this is really where you see the powerful orchestration from Oracle Ravello comes back into play, is that we do a lot of work inside the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service to make sure that an environment gets cleaned up when it is not being used anymore. So we have all kinds of concepts like timers and that kind of stuff. When you actually request an environment, you can say, hey, I only need this for the coming 8 hours, and we will automatically take care of the cleanup process after 8 hours, unless you manually extend it again. And this really makes sure that you only really are paying for when you're consuming, and that when you're not consuming, you're really not paying for the service. And that makes it a very cost-efficient environment. Now, as I said, from a development perspective, what's also very key from an Oracle Ravello perspective is that it can take a copy of that environment unchanged. So what you're developing on is going to be the same thing as what you will be running in production on-premise. And it has all the kind of capabilities inside of this to really integrate with existing development tools and to build complex networking and that kind of stuff. So for instance, if you want to run a nightly build in your environment, you can do that actually very easily with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So when you want to do this nightly build concept, Oracle Ravello can actually integrate with existing tools like Puppet and those kinds of things. And what it can do is at night it can actually create a build for you in the cloud. It can actually do all the validation against that. And of course, if the build is fine, it can just get marked as being an okay build. But more importantly, when there's something wrong with the nightly build, it can actually flag it. It can take that environment, snapshot it, set it aside so that an actual developer can look at it. Now again here the great thing is that you're not actually paying for the time when we're setting it aside. Only when a developer decides to go actually look at this environment, when he actually again reprovisions that snapshot environment, only at that time again you're going to pay for consuming the service. And we can fully integrate, as I said, with these kind of continuous integration tools. So the Ravello has a very strong API that you can fully automate this entire process, from running nightly builds, validating the builds, setting them aside if something goes wrong, so that other people can actually then check that out. Now, besides development and test purposes, there are, of course, other types of users in an organization that would like to have these kind of disposable workloads. And one of them is, of course, security people. And security people would like to take their production environment and they like to hack it. They like to do denial of service attacks against it and see how bad that of an impact can have. They like to do penetration testing. They like to do brute force attacks and those. Typically, that's not something you want to do, of course, against your real-life production environment. So ideally what you want to have is to take a copy of your production environment, really completely as is, including, and that's very important from a security perspective, including its networking topology around it with the firewalls, with the load balancers and all those kinds of things, and that you can move it over into a public cloud service. So you have that as an isolated environment. Now normally, doing security testing actually in the public cloud is very restrictive. Pretty much every public cloud vendor out there does not allow you to do security testing, including the Oracle normal cloud services that we have, and Amazon and Microsoft. They all have in their legal contracts is that you cannot do denial of service attacks and brute force attempts and all those kinds of things. Now you are able to do this absolutely with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. Because what you can do with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service is not just move your production environment into the public cloud, but also the clients that you would actually be using to do these kinds of tests, you move inside that same isolated bubble environment. So you create like a miniature internet within that isolated bubble, all within this public cloud environment. And from there, you can do all the normal things that you would normally be doing as a security person. You'll be running your metaexploit and all kinds of other scripts that you have to test out your environment, but you'll all be running this safely inside this bubble that would be like a copy of the entire internet, or at least the components that you're using within the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. Now the great thing here, of course, is that you cannot just do this once. I can take that copy of that production environment, deploy that even 10 times over and over, 10 times running exactly the same environment, and give 10 security persons their own environment that they can go completely crazy against. They can do whatever the hell they want with that. So these are also very typical kind of users that would love to have these kind of disposable workloads made of copies of their production environment that are completely the same as their production environment, but that they can do whatever the hell they want with it from a security testing perspective. Now, another use case that people need these kind of disposable workloads for is, of course, people that want to offer training, especially hands-on labs kind of training within their organization or maybe towards their customers. So if you're maybe running training towards customers, you provide commercial training. Within the Oracle Ravello clouds, of course, it's very easy to create a training environment. It runs in the public cloud, means you can only spin it off when you're actually delivering the training course, and you'll be only paying for it for the duration of the training class. It's extremely easy to set up a hands-on lab. Again, you can create this blueprint of all the components that you need for a hands-on lab training environment. And then when you have 20 students, you literally can click one button and will deploy that environment times 20 to those users. Again, unlimited scale. It's a public cloud service. It's super cost efficient. You only be paying it for, well, whatever duration you want to offer it up to the students. Now, another great functionality from the Oracle Ravello cloud service is that I can actually offer that environment up that I'm running in the public cloud to any of my students without them having to know anything about the Oracle Ravello cloud service. So they don't need to know any kind of login. They don't need to have an account with the Oracle Ravello cloud service or whatsoever. Within the Oracle Ravello cloud service, I can create a very special, secret, unique URL on each individual environment. And all I have to do is to send that URL to the user, to that student, and they'll get access to their hands-on lab. They can actually remote console their virtual machines. They can turn them on and off. They can do whatever they want with that environment. And they run in this completely isolated bubble, so there's nothing for them to destroy. If you compare this to normal kind of training environments, typically a teacher that actually provides these kind of environments typically spends one full day setting up his training class every time over and over. He has to reset hardware and all those kinds of things. Moving this into a public cloud service means at any given moment, you are ready to deliver your hands-on lab environment. You create your blueprint for your students once, and at any given moment, whenever you need it, at whatever capacity you need it, you can provide and create the environments for the students. And they, of course, can then take that hands-on lab from anywhere in the world. This runs as a public cloud service, so of course it's available from anywhere in the world. So these are some examples of users that would like to have disposable workloads in the public cloud, often based on existing virtualized workloads that people have on-premise. So let me actually give you a live demonstration of this public cloud service.
Ja, als we ze gaan bellen, het eerste, want dat hadden we met Isen ook voor, het eerste dat ze gaan zeggen is van clear.
Sorry, everyone. I think there's something wrong with the technology. Hopefully, you're all still there, and you can actually now see my screen. No, not yet. I have to press one more button, and it should now be popping up. Let me just see if I get that confirmed. Okay, so I think everybody should now hopefully be seeing. It's technology. You never know how things work out here. So how to show this Oracle Ravello cloud service. So what I have here is it is a cloud service. So you just go to our online portal, and I can log into my Oracle Ravello cloud service. So let me actually do that. And what you will see here first are two really main components. There's a section called applications, and these are my live running applications consisting out of multiple virtual machines, and I actually have something called a library. And this is really typically what your starting point will be when you use the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. I have a list of virtual machines, and with these virtual machines I can build these kinds of application blueprints. Now the first thing that you probably want to do is to get your on-premise virtual machines inside this Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So how difficult is that to do? Well, that is actually that simple. So just to show you what I actually have here in my environment, I also have a VMware environment. So let me actually just log into my VMware environment so you can actually physically see that. And I'm just showing you that so that you actually see that I have a VMware server here. I'm running some, this actually really is my own demo environment. I have a few virtual machines on this environment. And what I can now do is within Oracle Ravello, I can say, well, I want to take some of these virtual machines and move them into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. Now, how difficult is that? Not at all. I'll just click on Import VM. And what it will do is it will take me to the local Ravello Cloud Service client so that it can connect to the local VMware environment and it can automatically migrate these virtual machines over. Now, for me to be able to upload any of these virtual machines from my VMware environment, all I do is I click Upload, and I actually have a few different options here. I can take an existing exported virtual machine from VMware, KVM, or even another virtualization platform in the form of an OVF file or an OVA file, and I can just point to that file, and the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service will upload that. But an even nicer way is that Oracle Ravello can directly connect to my VMware local environment. So I'll choose that option. So what it will ask is it will ask the actual credentials and the information about my VMware environment. So I'll provide that. And what you now get to see here is the same list of what you actually see here in my VMware client. It's the same virtual machines that I have locally running that are now actually showing up in the Ravello interface. And here I can just take any virtual machine and I'll just be able to click on Upload, and it will automatically upload that virtual machine. Now, of course, depending on the size of that virtual machine, that will take minutes, hours, depending on it. But what it will do is it will not just copy over the virtual disk of the virtual machine. No, it will also look at the configuration file of the virtual machine so that the virtual machine within the Oracle Ravello environment gets created in the same way, so it has the same specs from a hardware perspective. It will also query the APIs from VMware to make sure it knows everything about the virtual machine from a networking topology perspective, so it understands to what networks it's connected, it understands its IP address, because these are things that you cannot read out of a configuration file, so that we have all that information. Now, I won't actually hit the upload button because that will take a little bit too long for a live demonstration. So I'll have I already done that for you. So I have that virtual machine here already in here as well. And I can actually now use this virtual machine in my environment. So I can do this one time to actually import my virtual machines using this step. And with that, I can then go to Applications. And with the applications, I now can really build my my application blueprint, the thing that I actually really want to do. Now, so all I do is I'll create application. I'll say, okay, I'm a security guy, I'm a hacker, and I want to do a penetration test. Within this environment, I would like to set up all the components that I want to have to do this test. So I'll take that imported virtual machine from me. This is a Linux server running a website, but I can also take, I need a Windows machine that I'll use as my hacker client. As I work for Oracle, let me throw in some Oracle components. I'll dump in an Oracle database. I'll dump in an Oracle WebLogic server. So I can actually really create this entire environment that I think that I'll need. And Oracle Ravello is intelligently enough that when we imported these virtual machines, it understands everything about these virtual machines. So if I, for instance, go to the networking tab, you will see here that I have these virtual machines, and Ravello figured out that these virtual machines are differently configured from a networking perspective. There are 3 different network segments running on 10.10.10, 10.10.11, 10.10.12. There's even a 4th network segment from a 192.168 perspective. And all of those subnets will automatically be created into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. We will by default enable routing between that, but you can control that. And more importantly, none of the environment of these virtual machines themselves will actually change. So the local IP addresses are not being changed. The MAC addresses are not being changed. The virtual hardware is not being changed. Now, what I can still do is to say, well, but I actually do want these virtual machines to be accessible from the outside world. So I can take, for instance, this server here, my virtual machine that I've imported, which is a web server, and I can say, well, I want to add a service to this machine. I'll say this is a web service, so this is running port 80. And what automatically will happen is that later on, when I'll actually publish this, and this environment will get public IP addresses, this virtual machine will get its own public IP address and will take port 80 and automatically forward this back into the 192.168.2.100 IP address, so that the machine itself never has changed while it is still publicly accessible. So I can create my entire environment. Of course, I can do things like still change virtual hardware and that kind of stuff. If I don't like it, I want it to be a bigger machine or a smaller machine than I had on premise, all of that can still be done. But after I've created this application blueprint, all I have to do is to click on the Publish button. And now, when I click on the Publish button, I actually have two main choices. I can choose to optimize for cost, or I can choose to optimize for performance. If I choose for cost, it means you let Oracle decide where this will run in the world. We will find the cheapest place in the world on our cloud to be able to run this. If you choose performance, you can actually choose the actual data center where you want to run this. So for instance, if I say I want to run this in Belgium, this is Europe West 1, that's a Belgian data center, it will get automatically deployed there. So I can actually choose to whatever data set I want to run this, and more importantly, I can also choose for what duration I actually want to deploy this environment for. Now, one option, of course, is forever, indefinitely, but more importantly, I can also set it that I only want to have it for the coming 2 hours. And this is, of course, really crucial to make sure that you get control over cost. What we have seen in the past, speaking to many customers, is that they are using things like Amazon or that kind of stuff for their developers, and these developers just spin off more and more environments, and when they're done using them, they don't take the time to delete these environments. So that means you keep on paying for all that stuff, even that you're not using it. So making sure that you really ask people, hey, how long do you need it for? And automatically after that duration, it gets cleaned up. Really allows you to get much better grip on control from a cost perspective. Now, of course, if I say 2 hours here, and later on I decide I want to have it longer, at any given moment I can extend it, so that's no problem there. It's not a hard limit or anything like that. But it sets an automatic time that if it's not being reset, after 2 hours it will automatically be wiped away. And besides that, of course, I can see what it will cost. So to run this 4 virtual machine environment with 11 CPUs, 21 gig of RAM, this will cost me, well, in my case I have a free account, but normally it would cost me about $1.50 an hour to run this. So I'll click on Publish, and it will now go start do this. It will now actually publish these virtual machines. We'll start running them in the public cloud. And this will actually not take that long. Keep in mind, the first step, importing the virtual machines into the Oracle Ravello cloud service. Now, of course, that depends on the size of the virtual machine and that kind of stuff, how long that will take. So that could take minutes, half hour, even longer, and those kinds of things. But after I've done that, when it sits in the Oracle Ravello library, from that moment on, when I'm now pushing this out, I am pushing this out from the cloud to the cloud. So this actually will go very fast. You will see that these 4 virtual machines typically are being run within about 2 minutes. They're up and running. We have a very large customer, a big gambling site, 888.com. They have environments that they have created in these blueprints with more than 120 virtual machines inside of them. And they can provision those environments for their testing within less than 15 minutes, more than 120 virtual machines. So this goes really, really fast. Now, while this is going, I actually think I already have a running application somewhere, so I can just show you that. So I have another already running deployed environment here, as you see, with the same virtual machine in it, with a Windows machine in it, and that kind of stuff. And one of the things, of course, I can do, if I can see it, is, of course, I can like remote console the machines and those kinds of things, so I get to see the actual screen of the VM. I can reboot it, power it on and off, all the things you would normally expect that you can actually do with a virtual machine. And Another great option, as I said, is one thing I can do is I can actually take this environment and I can actually share that with other users. Extremely easy. So imagine that this is an environment that I want to share with a developer. I found a particular bug and I want to make sure that someone actually is going to look at this. Now what I can do is I can go here to my actions and I say, let's grant an environmental access token. And what this allows me to do is say, well, I'll say this is a bug. I'll ask the developer, can you please look at this and fix it? I can give certain permissions on this environment, if they can change the virtual machines, if they can power them on and off and those kinds of things, and I can decide for how long they actually will be able to get access to this environment. So I'll click on create, and what I'll get is I'll get a special URL that if I copy this and I'll now go to a web browser that I'm not logged into anything or whatsoever, and I now take this URL and open this URL. So this is a URL I can just send by email to whoever needs to look at it. That person now automatically gets to a web page where he has access to these two virtual machines. He can remote console them. He can power them on and off. He can do whatever he needs to do with that for the duration that I have actually have given them access to this environment. So like for in a training environment or a hands-on lab environment, when you're providing students access, for instance, to an environment, all you do is you create the environments, you create these tokens on these environments, and each student gets their own individual token. They click on the URL, and they can do their work for 5 days or whatever long the duration of that training class is for. They don't need to know anything about Oracle Ravello as it is. They don't need to have an account to it whatsoever. They can very easily work with it. Now another option that I have for this environment is that at any given moment I can take this environment and snapshot it and put it back into my library. So I can actually also say, well, I want to give not just this environment to a developer to look at it, but what I want to do is I want to give a copy of this environment to a developer so that they actually can look at it. So this is my other bug, and I say, go snapshot this environment. And I can choose, do I want to snapshot this environment in running state, or do I want to snapshot this environment while I first nightly shut it down? I want to snapshot it in running state. And what I will now do is we'll take this environment and snapshot it as a whole, all the multiple virtual machines together, and push that back into my library. Now I can share this with a developer, and in all the time that the developer is not looking at it, I would not be paying for that environment. Because that environment can be right now be powered off, whatsoever. It sits in my library. It's not actually running. And only when the developer wants to look at it, he will go to the library and to the blueprints, and that's where he will find the snapshot that I've made. And now from this environment here, he can actually then go and deploy this back into the public cloud so that he actually can have a look at what's going on to this environment. Now, if we go back to my original environment that I deployed, as you can see, those virtual machines are by now actually running online. So I have these environments here. As you can see, I have public IP addresses still on these environments that will get routed into the certain ports that I have configured for those environments. So it's extremely easy to create these environments over and over, give people access to these environments, and share these environments. Now, of course, for anything that's extremely easy, you do need to make sure that you can control cost, and you want to understand, of course, who is spending the money. It's all pay-as-you-go, so you need to understand who is spending the money and those kinds of things, and that's also extremely visible within the Oracle Ravello cloud service. I can go to billing, and I can actually see here not just on individual virtual machines, what you would normally see from cloud vendors, but on actual application functionality. So on these application blueprints, which contain multiple virtual machines, we treat that as one. So I have here my application test 01. It's run by me, and that environment of multiple virtual machines is right now ranking up from a cost perspective to be $1. So I can at any given moment see for a month, for a duration, for a particular person what they're spending. I can choose over what period I want to see what they're doing. So I can get really clear visibility on which users within my organization are spending the money on these kind of deployable workloads that I have good control over that. So that's it from an Oracle Ravello perspective, a solution to very easily take your virtualized workloads that you have on-premise, and especially the disposable versions of those virtualized workloads, move those into the public cloud, de-stressing your local VMware environment, making sure that you don't have to pay attention to that. You focus just on your production workloads on-premise and move all those non-production workloads into the public cloud, giving you unlimited scale. Right? If you suddenly need 1,000 virtual machines, you can have 1,000 virtual machines within a minute. You will only pay for what you need, and you get it at a very, very cost-efficient price. And especially with the combination of that you only pay for what you need, you will typically find that you will massively be able to reduce your cost for these disposable kind of workloads compared to trying to run that on-premise. But more importantly, it allows you to give all the users within your organization that has a desire for these kinds of workloads, your security people, your dev test people, training people, those kind of things, that they can get their hands on these kinds of environments without any form of delay, without having to wait for corporate IT to finally provide virtual machines for them on the production platform and those kinds of things. It's full self-service, instantly available. So that was the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. Now, if you, of course, want to see this yourself, please feel free to go to cloud.oracle.com. And it is part of our infrastructure. So if you go to infrastructure services and Ravello, you'll find all the information about the Ravello Cloud Service. But of course, more importantly, you'll find the button there, try it now. We offer a full 14-day free trial of the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So you can subscribe today for free. Instantly start uploading any existing virtual machines that you have into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, build an application blueprint, and start deploying it. Now, even if you don't have locally on-premise virtualized environments, but you do like some of this functionality from an Oracle Ravello perspective, that you want to be able to do training online or build these kinds of applications within the Oracle. By default, within Oracle Ravello, when you get this trial account, there will already be a library of virtual machines there so that you can already directly get started. So you don't have to import virtual machines from an on-premise virtualized platform. If you do have that, great, single-click operation. But if you don't, there already will be a library on there as well. And of course, on the internet there, you will find many things like virtual appliances and that kind of stuff designed for VMware or KVM that you can use out of the box with the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service. So that being said, let's open it up for questions. Let me just see if I can see that online. I'm trying to find not responding. No.
I think you must have been really clear in your explanation, Richard. Seeing that
I'm not actually seeing the question window yet, so I don't even know. But I assume you're monitoring it.
Okay. Yeah. I've got it open for the moment. At the moment that someone goes for the trial account, can it be converted easily into a full working account afterwards, or
Yeah.
are those two different environments?
No, it's not two different environments. You can get a trial account, and you can take when you expire, you can at that moment decide that you or pay with your credit card, or you use our prepaid funding model that we have within Oracle. So you need our prepaid infrastructure as a service funds to be able to burn down these Ravello hours, the Oracle Ravello hours within the cloud service. So, or you can go down the credit card route, or if you have existing prepaid EOS funds within your organization, you can directly use those. If you have those funds, by the way, you don't need to do anything special. Go talk to whoever has the account within Oracle. They already have an Oracle Ravello account automatically as part of their package. So any existing customer with these EOS funds has access to the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service.
Okay, that's clear. Is Ravello also compatible with Oracle Virtual Machine?
So it's something we're working on to really get it out of the box compatible. So yes, you can get Oracle VMs into Ravello. It's not that difficult. Most virtualization stacks like Oracle VMs support exporting to an OVA, OVF file. So you would have to go doing it through that. You export the virtual machine to an OVA or OVF file, and then instantly you can take that into Ravello. But it's not like what we have with the integration with VMware, where it can directly connect to the VMware API without having to export anything manually and just connect to it. So you pretty much can take any virtual machine from any virtualized stack and move them into, as long as they can export to an OVA, OVF file, you can take them into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service.
Okay. We have a next question here. Is there any means to take care of the database cloning along with the takeover to the cloud?
So depends on how you look at it. So keep in mind, so Oracle Ravello is a infrastructure as a service kind of cloud service, meaning we're providing the infrastructure, right? So we're providing this platform that allows you to very easily orchestrate deploying these multiple groups of virtual machines with a single click kind of operation. Now, what you do inside these virtual machines, we have no visibility to, no access to. I mean, Ravello supports pretty much running anything from MS-DOS to Windows to Linux, old versions, new versions, all that stuff, and we have no insight to that. Now, if you, of course, want to run in this environment, an Oracle environment, which you absolutely can do, also from a licensing perspective, so our core factor table, how to map licenses, is now fully supported by the Oracle Ravello Cloud Services as well. So you know how to apply those kinds of things. But if you want to have a database running inside the Oracle Ravello Cloud and want to have things like cloning that database over using DataGuard or Golden Gate or something like that, or just an RMAN kind of solution, you would have to set that up. This is not like a PaaS solution where we will be taking care of those kinds of things. You would have to sort that stuff out yourself. We're just providing the infrastructure, the platform to deploy these virtual machines onto.
Okay. For the moment, I don't see any new questions coming in. Richard, you have anything else to elaborate on that?
No, I just hope people will try it out. Ravello, the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, really is seeing is believing. It's really not that of a complicated service at all. Get a trial account, have a play with it, and you'll see what the power and the joy is of using this flexible in the cloud environment to do these kinds of workloads. So if you have any desire yourself to do development and test, or you want to make developers happy, have a look at this service so you can actually do that. If you are a security guy and you want to do things like penetration testing and those kinds of things, brute force attacks, have a look at it. If you want to do any form of hands-on labs, proof of concepts for yourself or customers, internal projects, you will find that Ravello is an ideal service to be able to provide you that very cost efficiently, very fast in an easy cloud way. I see one other question coming in. By the way, Oracle Ravello virtual boxes being imported. That's a good question, as I am completely not an Oracle. I have to be ashamed of myself. I'm a completely non-Oracle virtual box expert, so I do not know out of the top of my head if Oracle VirtualBox supports exporting to an OVA, OVF file format. If it does, then yes. If it does not, then I wouldn't know if there's a way to take those kinds of virtual machines and move them over. And I see one other question, if the presentation can be found somewhere. I assume that we will be sharing that, right, Chris, with the attendees?
Yeah, that's correct. That will be, the necessary links will be shared along together with responses to these questions. So everyone will be put up to date regarding this webcast and all the information necessary.
Okie doke. Super. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you're as enthusiastic about Oracle Ravello Cloud Service as I am. And of course, I look forward to seeing that you'll maybe try this service out. And if you need any help with that, if you want Oracle to help you, maybe doing a proof of concept, some hand-holding about moving some of these virtual machines into the Oracle Ravello Cloud Service, we are, of course, more than happy to help you go along that journey.
Thank you very much, Richard, and good day to everyone who attended. Thanks. Have a nice day.